Now, I have a real question for the community. Why doesn't Mace Windu, or why doesn't the entirety of the Jedi Council, the Jedi Order, trust Anakin Skywalker? That is a real question that I've had on my mind for a little while. Because whenever we look at Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, we see that most of, if not all of the actions that Anakin goes through after cutting off Mace Windu's hand and after Mace Windu gets thrown out the window, all of the actions are happening because of the Jedi Order's inability to see the bigger picture when it came to Anakin Skywalker. When Qui-Gon Jinn literally walks up onto the Jedi Council and demands that they train him because Anakin Skywalker literally is the chosen one, Mace Windu simply says, well, he's too old to be a Jedi, so we can't train him. Despite the fact that Qui-Gon Jinn literally can prove and has already proven that he has the highest concentration of midichlorian counts that they have ever seen in a Jedi. So high, in fact, that even Yoda can't even compete with this kid. Why don't they just train him immediately? Is it because that he's not the blank canvas that the Jedi Order really recommends of all Jedi to be before they become a Jedi member? Or is it because that Mace Windu secretly hated this kid because he didn't like Count Dooku, and Count Dooku was friends with Sifo-Dyas, and he was the master of Qui-Gon Jinn, who also believed in prophecies, such as the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force, and by some weird measurement that also makes it to where Mace Windu also kind of hates Anakin by proxy, because he is literally the creation of the Force, and by proxy is also proof that prophecies are also true, and also proof of Count Dooku being correct, as well as Sifo-Dyas and Qui-Gon Jinn being correct about prophecies regarding to the Force. Well, regardless of those feelings of Mace Windu, Anakin Skywalker still became a Jedi either way, regardless of his own opinion, because Obi-Wan Kenobi literally said that he was going to train Anakin, whether or not the Jedi Council actually approved of him training Anakin, because he promised Qui-Gon Jinn before he died. Now, taking all of this into account, why would an entire group or an entire organization of individuals really hate a kid so much that they would despise him, even when he's 9 or 10 years old? Why would the Jedi Council go out of their way to specifically despise this lone child who not only has proven to have a massive amount of midichlorians and who has excellent connection with the Force, being able to not only pass one of their trials exquisitely without any sort of help or assistance, but also manages to fly a Naboo starship into a Lucrehulk class carrier and blow up the entire thing from the inside, thus saving the entirety of not only the Queen of Naboo, the entirety of Naboo itself, but also the Gungans as they were fighting the Trade Federation army. Why would they go out of their way to specifically hate on this kid for no reason other than the fact that Qui-Gon Jinn said he was the prophesized one who will bring the balance to the Force, so we have to hate him? And hell, this entire thing lasts for over 10 years. 10 years later, Anakin Skywalker is still a Padawan learner. He's 19 at this point, probably one of the oldest Padawans that they have in the entirety of the Jedi Order. He knows that he's qualified to be a straight-up Jedi, maybe even a Jedi Knight probably, but for some reason they just keep holding him back and telling him, no, it's not your time, you must be patient, you must see through the Force, you must feel the Force, you must accept the fact that you might be a Padawan for a little while longer, despite the fact that Anakin Skywalker is one of the most qualified Jedi in the entirety of the Jedi Order, so qualified in fact that even the instructors of Jedi lightsaber mastery, as well as many of the instructors when it comes to the Force, are weaker than Anakin Skywalker himself. Yet, despite all of this, throughout the entirety of the 10 years between The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, he is constantly hated on by literally everyone in the Jedi Temple. He's hated on by the children, who hate him because he's a slave, even though they probably all came from similar situations like slave worlds, and they never got to experience slavery because they just so happened to be in tune with the Force enough to where a Jedi might put interest in them and then take them away from their families and their homes. He's hated on by his own master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, to the point where he literally confines it in Luminara that if he had a choice to train Anakin Skywalker, he wouldn't do it. And then he is hated on Mace Windu for a decent portion of time because Anakin Skywalker believes that he's actually a decent, solid Jedi, which, so let's be completely honest, he is. He's one of the, like I said, he's one of the more capable Jedis in the entirety of the Jedi Temple. Just a little bit of information of what he was doing during his time in the Jedi Order. He made his first lightsaber when he was 13, got his first kill when he was 13 immediately after that, whenever he killed a slaver. His only friend in the entirety of the Jedi Order at the time was Asherad Het, a man who was a Tusken Raider Jedi from Tatooine, who later became Darth Krayt, a Sith Lord, whose entire ideology was taking over the entire galaxy as the true Sith. You have to be extremely sad to have your only friend be a dark Jedi future Sith Lord who wanted to exterminate your great-great-great-grandson. Not to mention the several fights that he would get into, him being isolated inside of his own room, creating tech, the fact that he literally went down into the underground of Coruscant to participate in illegal racing tournaments, which he won, by the way, and also the fact that the entirety of the Jedi Temple either hated him for being a slave and teased him for being a slave, or hated him because Qui-Gon said he was the chosen one, which they mocked him over multiple times. And then getting into Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, holy shit, things go downhill extremely fast. So he goes back to Coruscant with Obi-Wan Kenobi. He meets Padme Amidala for the first time in about 10 years since Star Wars The Phantom Menace came out. And then, not only does he immediately become infatuated with her to the point where he's actively ignoring the duties and the wishes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, his own master, he's also actively seeking a relationship with this woman to the point where they both agree, hey, this thing between you and us, this whole thing where I'm in this sexy black dress and you're obviously horny for me because you're a 19-year-old who is still a virgin and a part of a fucking sacred order of Jedi who swear off of emotions, maybe this won't work. And then what happens? Let's go through the list, okay? Goes to Tatooine, finds out his mom has been enslaved to some guy named Owen Lars. He'll be important later. He goes to the Lars homestead, sees C-3PO. What the fuck? I can't even say that out loud. Holy shit. Encounters C-3PO, finds out that his mom has been abducted by Tusken Raiders, finds the Tusken Raiders, his mom dies in his arms, exterminates the entire village to the point where, in Legends continuity, the Tusken Raiders now fear a dark god that descended on them one day and exterminated an entire village filled with dozens of Tusken Raiders, and then he immediately goes to Geonosis to save Obi-Wan Kenobi, ends up getting his arm cut off and getting brought into a massive civil war between the entirety of the galaxy, leading an entire army of slave children against an entire army of droids led by your pseudo-grandfather, who was the master of your former master, Qui-Gon Jinn, who is now the pseudo-grandfather of you and Obi-Wan Kenobi, because you both had the same master. That was all in one day. I can't fucking get over that shit. And then the Clone Wars happen, and he has to juggle all these things. He has to keep his relationship between Padme Amidala secret from literally everyone he knows. He has to lead armies of slave children into open combat and try not to get any of them killed, even though a lot of them die a lot. And he also gets posted upon him a literal Jedi apprentice who he doesn't even like at first, and then warms up to, much like the people who actually watch Star Wars The Clone Wars. And then by the end of the Clone Wars, your apprentice literally leaves the Jedi Order after being framed for a bombing, and then you actively go out of your way to fight your old master's mentor and cut off his hands and head, which only then leads to you going down to the dark side of the Force even more, being manipulated by your father figure, and then being told the only way you can save your wife is if you join the dark side of the Force, join me, we will find a way to help her, and then you exterminate the entirety of the Jedi Order, and you get your arms and legs cut off by your new master after you choke out your wife, and then you become Darth Vader and spend the rest of your life in a blackened suit where your master often tortures you to the point where you have no control over your life anymore because everything went to shit whenever you decided to kill all those kids. Hey, Anakin, your life's shit, buddy. your life shit. I recommend therapy, not the Jedi issue therapy, like an actual therapist. Please, for the love of God, seek mental help. We love you.